that kind of thinking. So I'm just asking you to consider not merely what we think, but how. And the second part of it, not then merely what we do, but how we go about doing it. I'll give you an idea of where I see this as crazy thinking. If everybody's familiar, you guys have it tough over here, but you should try Arizona. The water's drying up in Arizona. Has anybody seen recent photos of the water line of the Colorado River from where it used to be to where it is now? The difference would be like saying it used to be above this ceiling and now it's at my knees. That's how much that water has been depleted. In Arizona and in that area, they've been growing places in desert areas that don't have a lot of water. And now they're in a lot of trouble because everybody who's set up farming industry, agricultural industry in the area are having difficulty in who has water rights, and that there just simply isn't enough water. So the state of Arizona did something interesting this last couple of months in their legislation. They require now for home builders, if you're going to build and sell houses, whether you're doing that as a, on a large scale, a subdivision or something, or a single home, you must guarantee the purchaser 100 years worth of water. That's in their legislation, okay? They've just legislated. So that's really hard to guarantee. And most places that they're building in, including Phoenix and the sprawl that's around it, hardly anyone can guarantee that. So some huge companies got together and figured out how to immediately get around this. And what they're doing now, and they're very, very proud of this, because they're building 3,000 homes before this year is over, they won't sell them. They'll only be for rent. So they don't have to guarantee 100 years worth of water because they're not selling those homes, because someone put language together. The reason I say introduce this idea, not merely what we think, but how. If we think in a manner that disconnects us from a greater purpose and a greater circle, we can find a million ways to link ideas that actually don't get together. If you acknowledge that there's no water, it seems to me irrational to say, oh, but I'm not selling those. So, because the people who buy them won't have water. That could be in a year, that could be in 5 years, it doesn't matter. That's the type of thing that I'm asking. Just an example. There's only a few of these. I'll just go through. Is it getting better? Can you see better now? Okay. So changing our behaviors is thinking about how do we work together? How do original nations and peoples, and by the way, that's the language that I like to use, original nations and peoples. Those are peoples that have a relationship with the environment that predates any of the stuff we see now. Could it be that there's some knowledge and some wisdom and some experience in that? That we understood the relationship was greater than just the problems for two-leggeds. It isn't only about human thinking. It's about including all things. And I won't speak too much to it because I know Orville will. So this changing, this transformative collaboration has to get out of some of that thinking. A lot of people are calling it decolonizing. Decolonizing wealth, decolonizing ownership, decolonizing property, decolonizing conversations, etc. Because in a colonial manner, it's meant to plant yourself over something to colonize. But in a relationship manner, in a more natural one or in a traditional one, it's about learning to accept all things being connected, as we say, and why and how. Really wanting to look at it. What stops us? If climate change is accelerating, and science reports that I read, especially those from the International Panel on Climate Change, are talking about an acceleration that people were not even ready for. The models that they wrote 10 years ago are not useful now. And yet people still refer to them. Well, by 2050, same type of thinking. To advertise that, our cars by 2050, does anybody know what it takes to get lithium these days?
Yeah.
Or where you find that lithium, or cobalt, or other rare earth minerals or metals? In fact, the carbon footprint to make an electric vehicle is higher than it is to make a fossil fuel car, because there's enough tool for it, and the extraction that has to go with it. The worst part about that is many of the world's largest lithium deposits, guess where they're located?
Indigenous lands.
All on tribal lands. So now we must, if that's what we want, because we're not looking at it, this challenge, we must move people once again. We must dispossess them once again. And we must find a rationale that says, oh, it's okay, we do that to those people. They aren't that many, and this is for more of us. And in your name, huge corporations, governments, politicians are ignoring that information so that they can get to market and be the next ones to have stuff. How many have heard about the mining on the deep sea oceans? Anybody? Of course you have. So I'll just say it briefly. If you don't know about it, there are these like deposits. They're like rocks. They're all littered on the deep ocean floor. That's like the Mariana Trench and deeper. Yeah, that's the depth of the ocean that we still know very little about. But they've been able to find that there are these deposits that hold what? What's in there?
Well, there's
It's
yeah, everything.
Everything that's solidified over all this time and fallen to the depth of the ocean floor. So there's cobalt, there's lithium, there's whatever you want. And now the idea is to send down submersibles, robots, and they will just mine the bottom of the ocean floor. So, I don't know, fill your bathtub, put something on the bottom, and go in there and kick it all around and see what happens. It changes everything. This kind of thinking is changing. So, if this is a concept, decolonization, that we can't just implant ourselves over the planet. For all the conflicts that are going on in the world right now, these are two-legged conflicts. How many of you have ever seen the deer and the elk have a war against each other? Because I never have. I've never seen any of the birds sit next to each other and say, yeah, you're not our kind, and we need this. They all adapt, and some often go without. That's why many species are going extinct, because they actually do work together, that interconnectedness. So where is that lie? Yeah? And it possibly takes that working together. For 540 years of the implant of this way of thinking and being, the political system that arose, those who came from other countries to make it. For 540 years, that has not been working together with traditional peoples actually have deep knowledge about how to maintain the relationship, and for generations to come. For Lakota to talk about the seventh generation, this is a lot of thinking, a lot of having conversation and discussion that we have to prepare for so that our hearts, our minds, our spirits are open for what might be coming. I'm very fortunate that I saw many elders as I was younger saying we have to prepare. And I didn't know what that preparation was, but now we're seeing things that are changing. So this domination of the environment through a colonial process, just like going on in conflicts around the world right now, who gets to own what? This is only about two-legged space. It is not considering all the rest of our relatives or the larger environment, for which in Western science they're talking about climate change. But all these things are connected, as I would understand it. So these are things that we want to bring, that we're going to show in these films. Okay, this is very brief. This is what we use at NITC. It's a model that is highly complex, so I won't go into it, but I will say that it's based on, it's hard to see, on that very outer ring. It talks about relationship with each other and our environment in an absolute universal, I don't care, you can say universe, you can say many universes way. All things have a relationship that need to have a balance of well-being, how to be together. And that well-being reflects for two-leggeds on a path that we might take where we learn what it means to be friends, when we learn what it means to be allies, what it means to be relatives. Whoever is in the center of that circle, choosing to work together, it has to include perhaps everything. How many people have chemical bug sprays in their house? Anybody here? You do? God. They don't go away, do they? But wasps have changed what they do because of things that we've done. And now that can be a nuisance. Or the green lawn thing still. Does anybody know where the green lawn idea came from? That you had to get turf builder and chemicals and your lawn has to be green, and then every week you have to go out and mow it. Or this time of year in South Dakota, not so bad as maybe on the East Coast or other places, there are millions of people out there raking leaves.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I mean, they spend their day grumpy on a Sunday because they want to watch sports on TV, and they're out there. They're really angry about it. And all of that translates into how we understand, how we think about our relationship, all in simple things. Here's another one to ask you. How many people here still take plastic bags from the grocery store? Even when you don't want? I mean, guilty. It took me years to teach myself under no condition will I take a plastic bag, because it served no purpose other than the petroleum companies and everyone else to have convenience. Caught in my thinking, right? I will take my own bags. So in the early days, I'd get out of the car and I'd forget the bags in the car that I was bringing, the reusable ones. I'd forget them. I get in the grocery store, like, oh, I forgot those bags. Oh, I'll have to take your plastic. It probably took me 4 times till I realized, I'm just gonna put it back in the cart. And I'll walk to the car,
right.
and then I'll put it in the car into the bags that I brought. I don't need that. And yet here, imagine just one little simple thing. If enough people said, yeah, that's a stupid idea. Does anyone know how plastic bags came into being? How they were created? Oh, you know?
You mean from petroleum? You mean, yeah.
Petroleum companies and the plastics industry said in a huge conference, they said, we need to make more money, increase profits. Our shareholders want more, and we want our industry to be vibrant and part of the economy. How can we do that? We need to create single-use items so that you have to keep getting it, and keep getting it, and keep getting it. That's what I meant in the reflection of not merely what we think, but how we think. None of nature around you thinks in terms of single-use items. Could you imagine? Butterfly. Yeah, I'm a single-use butterfly. As soon as I've landed somewhere and a bird takes me, it's okay. Or around here you got alligators. Imagine they were like that. I'm a single-use alligator. Doesn't make sense. Where does that thinking come from? In the depth of the fraction of that relationship. So an easy one. If all of us just were able to take that, and I'm telling you, I worked at it for months. And I finally had to make an agreement to myself. I will never take a plastic bag, I don't care. Now, of course, people that I know and friends come over, and they're bringing plastic bags, and they go, oh, I was gonna stop by, Johnny, but I gotta go, I'll see you later. Little things that get in our way from how we think. So significant in looking at the larger challenges of what it means to be a human being, and how we describe that in relationship with each other and our environment. How we teach, how we research, how we investigate, how we counsel, how we heal. All of those things come into it. So this path, I will share with you. This used to be, as Orwell might attest, those circles you see are the ones that overlap in every circle that bring others to meet. It used to be completely in 4 directions. Yeah? True north, as you might call it, true south, true east, true west, but that's changing. Did you know that? The planet is tilting differently now, yeah? And there's a change in how that was. And there are those that are aware, that are sharing now. We seriously have to look at it. These changes are not something that happened overnight. And possibly they're from mostly two-legged impact. Okay, this is the rest of the stuff, because this is a setup for the films and also for Orwell to talk later. It's the current government of the United States structure. Anybody who's not aware of it, I'm not really conversant, other than to say I've had to research and study why it is things get lost. And you can see in this simple diagram that there are, of course, as you know, 3 branches. Should I turn this off and we can all go through civil duty class? 3 branches of this way that they do things. And when you get from these 3 branches, the legislative, the executive, the judicial, when you're talking about environmental things, natural resource management, who decides? What voice do we all have in a process of determining our relationships with each other, our environment? You must navigate all of these things depending where you came in. So if you look at, well, I need to educate some people, well, then you're going to have to go across to agriculture, who's in a different department, under a different branch, if it's going to be something about the environment. Then they have to send it over to the legislative that says, yeah, we don't actually have a law or a statute that allows for Indian people or original nations and peoples to be the educators on that. So we'll have to write something. And then when you get done with that, you have to come back over, into another branch. And so in order to get to any of these, you have to go through multiple ones that have to agree that what you're doing is even worthwhile, when they are already busy with the things that they're doing, right? War and money and the deficit and Republicans versus Democrats versus whatever. All of those things, to me, have nothing. They have to do with two-legged relationships, but what do they have to do with our relationship with each other and our environment? Even the Environmental Protection Agency